Holly, and I want to say a very special thank you to both of you, both for having this hearing and for permitting me to come today. I am not a member of this subcommittee, but I got a little special exception to be able to come in here and ask some questions, and I'm grateful for that. Look, every community relies on firefighters, and firefighters rely on equipment to keep themselves safe and to be able to put out fires. I want to focus today on the impact of concentration in the industry and what it means to have diminished competition when firefighters and their communities are out looking to buy firefighting equipment. Over the last 20 years, private equity has been buying up independent fire truck manufacturers to the point that today, just 3 companies own approximately 80% of all fire truck manufacturers. And what have these gigantic corporations done with all that market power? Well, they have hiked prices, restricted supply, and created a dangerous backlog of firefighting equipment. I just pulled some examples at random. In 2013, a pumper truck cost $500,000. Today it costs $1 million. In 2013, a ladder truck cost $900,000. Today it costs $2 million. In 2019, the lead time for a fire truck delivery was 1 year. Today, it's up to 3.5 years. So let me start with you, if I can, General President Kelly. You represent more than 350,000 firefighters all across this country, which is why Senator Banks and I wrote you a letter about this very topic. Could you explain how private equity roll-ups of fire truck manufacturers threaten firefighters' ability to protect the communities that they serve?
Absolutely, Senator, and thank you for the question. Chief Rubin testified earlier. In his city, they had to put, because they did not have enough apparatus on hand to staff the firehouses, they were putting firefighters out basically on pickup trucks.
Oh my God.
Like painting crews with ground ladders. Now, if you're trapped in the 3rd or 4th floor, you're jumping. Mm-hmm. And that is not how emergency response is designed in this country. We have standards that have been created over many times, and unfortunately, when we read about a fire code or a standard, it's usually in the shadow of a devastating loss of life. And we don't make these up. There's a reason that these standards are in place. And what's been created, notwithstanding, the streamlined ordering process, which that Pierce line, although it's supposed to streamline the production, still takes 2 to 3 years to deliver an engine or a ladder truck. Not only do we need to do better, we need to investigate how we got here. Yeah. And that's why in the wake of your letter, we've actually written to the Department of Justice and the FTC to investigate this.
Oh, I appreciate that very much. I just want to underscore this again. We are talking about 3 companies that control 80% of all manufacturing. They know they can hike prices and nobody can afford to walk away. That's the consequence of these roll-ups that concentrate, so there's less and less competition here. And this is why it is important that the federal government investigate and enforce the law to prevent this from happening. The Federal Trade Commission has the authority to investigate whether private equity firms and other giant companies have broken competition laws, going very much to your point, President Kelly, and whether they've made it more difficult for firefighters to do their jobs and keep us safe. So, Mr. Musharbish, you're an expert on competition. Let me just ask you, would a study by the FTC help shed light on this issue and help firefighters get the equipment they need to keep their communities safe?
Absolutely, Senator.
Good. You want to elaborate on that? You can. I still got some more time if you want to say a little bit more.
I would love to, Senator. Thank you for the question. I would say that a 6B inquiry would help in 2 ways. On the one hand, it could shed light on the practices of the dominant firms, Rev Group and Pierce, to make sure that the public and lawmakers know about those practices and whether they're anti-competitive or abusive, or whether they present barriers to competition for small manufacturers. Beyond that, a 6B inquiry would very much help us understand the barriers, the other barriers to competition for the small manufacturers. Why is it that they can't expand? Why is it that they can't, for example, many of them can't acquire steel and make their own chassis? That's why a 6B inquiry would be very helpful here. Absolutely.
That's very helpful. And President Kelly, do you agree that you'd like to see the FTC investigate and write a report on this?
Absolutely. I think that we've actually wrote a letter and asked them to involve themselves in it. And to your point, when you see, 3 companies controlling 80% of the market share, it harkens me back to the reminder of trying to buy concrete in Manhattan in the late 1980s.
Yeah. Very, very good. And Chief Rubin.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Well, without a doubt, I think to have the investigation move forward is critical. I would just dare say, going back to one of your earlier questions, during the International Association of Fire Chiefs Conference in 2024, we met with the president, just happened to be there, of Pierce. And he described the fact, expect escalating prices coupled with more delays. Verbalize that. After that, we had meeting after meeting. It was just interesting the way you described your question, because you were exactly right, with their local distributorship, Conrad. Conrad said they weren't going to be able to do anything better than 3 years and maybe longer with price increases. And quite frankly, at that point, we made a determination to go with another company. We're actually using, as they say, full disclosure, Spartan, which is part of the Rev Group, but we're going to get a little bit better delivery time. Not great, but better. And the price was significantly lower than what we were going to pay with Pierce.
But you remind me, Chief Rubin, on this, not only the risks that President Kelly points out, but that the problem is headed in the wrong direction. That is, that it's getting, potentially here, that it is getting worse.
Without a doubt. Again, going back to the time when we were without 5 fire trucks of 15 total, we contacted every fire department that we knew of that had used fire apparatus for sale. That was back in July of 2023 with no results. We looked at every manufacturer available, and there were 4 fire trucks that we found in Louisiana. We bought 3 of the 4 immediately, and they didn't really meet our needs. They were rural fire trucks in an urban setting, but at least it got us out of what I would describe as a major crisis. And exactly as the general president described, if someone would have been trapped on the 2nd or 3rd floor in Kansas City, Kansas, during that window, which was a 3-month window, and we documented 108 different calls that we went on, the firefighters would arrive and they'd wait for the real fire truck to show up to go to work.
I appreciate that. I don't want to be the guest that came and ate all the pork chops, but I just wondered if, Chairman Hawley, could I have a couple of more minutes just to ask Mr. Verning and Mr. Meyer about this? You represent the 2 largest fire conglomerates, REV Group and Pierce, and together, your 2 companies alone control more than 60% of the market, thanks to private equity's 2-decade-long efforts now to buy up the smaller manufacturers. So you've heard from everyone else on the panel that an FTC study of what's going on in the fire equipment manufacturing industry would help firefighters do their jobs more effectively and more safely. So, Mr. Verning, yes or no, would you support an FTC study?
Senator Warren, thank you for that question. The FTC has reached out to us, and we've had conversations with them. They've asked us to supply a lot of information based on the things that we're talking about here today, and we were more than happy to supply that for them.
Well, okay, so you would support a study, yes? Is that what you're saying?
I continue to work with the FTC in any way they see.
Yes, you would support a study? It's not a hard question.
I would continue to, we would continue to work.
This is as easy as my questions get. Would you support a study?
So I don't know what a study is because I build fire trucks for a living, and I don't know what that term is. I know that we're working with them. I don't know to what level we are, so I apologize.
Okay. I'll take that as the game of dodgeball. Mr. Meyer, how about you? Would you support an FTC study?
We've also been engaged with the FTC with inquiries that they've had, and we'll continue to work with them and cooperate with them on any requests that they have.
Okay. Would you support a study?
We're going to continue working with the FTC at anything that requests that they have and be.
Look, I just want to say, if you are so confident that you are doing right by the fire departments across America, then why would you be afraid of a study? Why wouldn't you just stand up and say, it's a study? Just come in, find out what's happening, find out what's changed over time, as President Kelly says, how we got here, and try to answer the question that Chief Rubin is asking, and that is, what's the path we're on going forward? Why is it so hard for 60% of the industry, who is so sure you're doing a good job, just to stand up and say, sure, come and study us, we got nothing to hide? Or did I get that wrong? Maybe you've got something to hide?
Ma'am, we're more than a 100-year-old company. We've been fair, honest, and transparent with our customers through that. I don't believe we have anything to hide. I don't know the details of what the difference between an inquiry and a study are as it relates to the FTC. And ma'am, I don't know what exactly that means. But at the same time, we will continue cooperating.
Well,
and
I just want to point out, the guys who put their lives on the line, they didn't have to stop and ask what the difference is between an inquiry and a study. They said, we'd just really like to know what's going on. People who study competition say, this is a real problem here. We'd really like to know what's going on. And the people who are on the front lines, who are hearing about where this problem is headed and who it is who's next time around going to be sent out in a pickup truck in the middle of a fire to try to save lives and maybe put their own lives at risk, they didn't have to ask the difference between an inquiry and a study. They said, please, bring in the FTC and let's get a study. I sure would like to get this done if we could, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Ranking Member. Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence on time.
Absolutely, thank you. I'll just say this as we close the hearing.